Okay, you can call me Moshe, and this is my channel, and I'm Israeli. I live in the Galilee, the lower Galilee, and I've lived here many years, and I'm putting on sunglasses so it gets easy on my eyes. Today is the 7th of November, Tuesday, 9:06 in the morning. Our weather seems to be clicking down in temperature, which is the nice days before the rains. High of 84, it's 70 now, low is 63. It'll start dropping to highs a little bit, 2-3 degrees cooler in the coming days. We rarely see temperatures below like 44. I mean, it goes down, but it's usually at night in the 40s. It doesn't go to, 20. We don't get freezing. We don't get snow or anything like that. Okay. Let me start with our praise. This is a Bible-believing website, and we're going to integrate what America's doing and what's going on in the Middle East with accurate Bible prophecy, not churchianity, okay? There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, let me, while people are still coming in, jump into the live stream and make sure everything is doing what it's supposed to do. And sound and picture is present, so quick housekeeping in the chat. Wrong place. Okay. Almost done. Went wrong. Oh, went wrong again. Trouble with this click every day. Got it. Alright, let's see if it took. Good. Okay, so let's, go through what America is up to in the Middle East. The Congress in America has been talking about a declaration of war on Iran. And I believe somebody in one of the houses submitted it. The next thing we know, well, we know Iran's not backing off. The attacks on the um, American bases in Iraq and Syria have stayed relatively consistent. They're militia satellites or puppets of Iran in Iraq and Syria. And they also have IRGC troops there and stuff like that. Now, what Iraq said they were going to do was, it sounded like they were going to overrun the bases in Iraq. America has quite a few bases in Iraq and the Green Zone, and they would probably go after the consulate, the embassy, whatever it is over there, probably the embassy. The embassy is basically almost a military fort, you know. It has a compound, it has grounds, it has walls, it has bomb shelters, safe rooms for lots of people, Marines, and other defense mechanisms. What all they have? Oh, they probably have a modest amount of shoulder fired weapons, although today modest may mean 40 or 50. That could take out vehicles and, maybe light armored vehicles. I don't believe they have artillery or mortars. They probably have squad machine guns, the big guns that you put on a bipod or a tripod. They probably have 30s and 50s, and they probably have many thousands of rounds of ammunition, like 10,000 or something like that. They might have M16s with the 40 millimeter grenade launcher mounted underneath, which could be helpful at times. Although it's a rather short range weapon, it could serve a purpose. They probably have different colored smoke grenades to signal if a helicopter is going to land in the compound. They probably have smoke grenades to obscure vision in case they're doing something and the enemy is laying siege to the walls of the compound. They could put smoke up so they can't see. They probably have all kinds of armor. I'm thinking what else they might have. Since it's such a hot zone, no, I don't think they'd have real heavy offensive weapons like claymores. I mean, if they have to retreat inside, they might have ways to booby trap the courtyard, maybe with claymores, remote fire. They're going to have cameras all over the place. They're going to have drones that could observe what's going on. Would they have attack drones? I doubt it. The idea of fortifying an embassy is to not stop an army of 2,500 from attacking it with armor, artillery, mortars, shoulder-fired rockets, helicopter. That they need to call in support for. But they could keep off terrorist mobs, even if those are 2,000 to 3,000. They could attempt to hold them off by having heavy steel gates and nice thick reinforced concrete walls around the compound. And they'd probably have lookout towers and things like this. I don't think they would have claymores or IEDs, or they would have mines. I don't think they would go that far. The idea when this happens is to call the cavalry, and then they come in with helicopters and jets and they take care of the problem. I don't know today how many Marines they have in this place, but I'm guessing it's probably around 100 or 200 in the embassy compound. It's going to be pretty high. So it's a heck of a hard fight to get a mob with AK-47s and run up on the gates and try to get in. Marines are going to hold, but they can use drones. to come in and suicide drones blow things up. They could use attack drones that fire missiles or drop from a vertical angle straight down bombs. They have those. That could hit buildings. They can shoot missiles into the compound. The idea about softening the target up like that, they probably at this point have in the compound yard, they probably have Patriot anti-missile systems, or the other one is Thor. No, not Thor. They have another one with a T. I forget what they call it. And they probably have a small amount of those set up in the compound to defend against incoming threats. Again, they're mostly going to be looking at offensive weapons, okay? They're not going to have 3 or 4 Apache gunships there, helicopter gunships that can launch and mow down thousands of people. They don't want to show that. This is America, they don't want to display that attitude. So the enemy, the militias, would start with drones and missile and mortars to come over the wall and start damaging things in the compound. Big if they could accurately hit inside the compound, which they probably could. And that would, of course, drive all the personnel still at the embassy into the safe rooms that are bomb resistant, probably substantially so. And what they would be doing is going down perhaps 2-3 flights of stairs. Okay, there would be some sort of secure steel doors to block off the staircase, which would help for a little while. And then they would go down, I would say probably 30-40 feet underground. And there would be a large series of rooms down there, fortified heavily. The enemy's not going to come with bunker busters, and they would have probably a series of doors and passageways that could be shut. Okay, so in other words, the way Israel did the bomb shelters years ago is you came down a staircase. So they were underground. So up at the top, you saw like a little covering where the staircase was, and it had steel doors. And then you went down a flight of steps that were maybe 20 steps or something, 25, And there was a small landing, like little more than the size of a phone booth, like a big phone booth, if you could remember phone booths. I'm kidding. And then you turned a 90-degree turn to get into the actual room. And when you made that 90-degree turn, you traveled a short distance, maybe 2 feet, 3 feet. It was just enough that if they broke into the top of the staircase, they couldn't fire anything like an RPG and hit the inner door, the last door to get in, because it was set back enough so the angle was wrong. You couldn't hit it. You could hit the back of the staircase, the wall behind the little phone booth area, but so what? Didn't do anything, right? So they actually had to come down the steps and try to work on the door. And there was some fear about doing that because the door could have a porthole with a metal, you have a disc cut in there, maybe like this, right? Or even smaller. And it has a metal sphere that sits in place in front of it, and you have like a metal peg that keeps it in place, and then you pull that peg out and you rotate it up, and it's going to be 1/2-inch steel, with heavy duty attachments. So you're not going to shoot that disc off at all with a regular rifle or anything, right? So if they were down in that bottom and they had one of these portholes, which they may or may not have, and you had a rifle, which they had rifles down there with them M16s or Uzis. An Uzi would be perfect for that, right? A nice little 30-40 round clip in an Uzi. You stand to the side, you open the porthole, you stick the Uzi in, and you start giving a nice 3 or 4 second burst of 30-40 rounds in that passageway, and that's good night, you know. Or you could get cute. You could open up the door and throw a hand grenade out. You know, I mean, that's dangerous to open up the door. You don't want to do that. But anyway, there. So they'd have to go down to the bottom and stand there and start trying to get into the door, and that was no mean feat. It was a solid steel door. You know, it was meant to sustain, you know, heavy damage. Now, they could have had big, you know, like pieces of rebar that went up into the ceiling, went into the floor, went into the door and the other side of the door, and put it, you know, 2-3 inches into the concrete. So I mean, they could sit there and kick, and you know, they die of old age before they got in. Okay, so the American embassy compounds are not going to be that way. They're going to be way more sophisticated. So you'll go down a door, and I'm talking about what I was explaining to you were more civilian bomb shelters and kibbutzes and stuff in the old days. But kibbutzes had an arsenal. Not a big arsenal. They probably had 20, depending on the size of the kibbutz, probably had 20 or so guns and ammunition, communication radios with the military, stuff like that. They had pistols too. So when guys would go out and work in the field, distant from where everybody else was, they're not going to schlep a rifle around because they're working. So they'd carry a 9mm. Usually they were cheap, junky Italian, garbage guns. No serious gun nut in America would want one, but they worked, you know. And who were they up against? They weren't up against, you know, Navy SEALs or something like that. They were up against terrorists, you know. So a guy would go out by himself or with one other person. They'd be working on the agriculture, the irrigation or whatever, and they were a few miles away from other people. They would, you know, have a pistol. It's something, right? You know. The kibbutzes used to get stormed with infiltrations, and the sirens would go off, and everybody in the kibbutz would run into the various shelters, and they locked themselves in, and then you made sure they took guns with them, you know. Some of the guys that were on the security detail, which they volunteered for, might have stayed outside the shelter in predetermined secure locations for ambush. So they would work it out before. Well, they'll come down this sidewalk or this road. You'd be on the roof here, you'd be under the house here, you'd be here, you know, so they could have a good crossfire on them. Now, you know, they're talking 15, 20 idiots coming in try to kill them. If it was 1800, then you have to go to the shelter. You're not going to sit there with a bunch of rifles and try to take out a large, you know, 15, 20 idiots, 30 maybe, you know. You deter them. You don't want them to try to break into the bomb shelter where the women and the children are and the old people, you know. So the embassy things are what they'll have is they'll have a hall. You'll go down a step and then you'll have a hallway till you get to the next set of doors, which may be at an angle and may not be at an angle. And that's a death trap. And the Marines will know how to use that death trap. That's a kill zone, okay? And there'll be a series of doors they'll have to get through to get to the people. I would say probably 3, okay? And in the compound safe shelters, there'll be multiple rooms. They'll, of course, have places to sit down. They'll have bathrooms. They'll have bottled water all over the place. Nobody's going thirsty, right? They'll have snack food. They're not going to have, lamb chops and, shrimp and, MREs or, simplistic things that don't go bad, right? And they'll have first aid medical kits to some level, probably a pretty decent level, They'll probably be able to treat burns, probably have morphine. It'll be under lock and key till it's needed, and they'll have, bandages, things to stop bleeding, and, I don't think they're going to be doing surgery down there, but they have a pretty good array of medical stuff, right? Communications gear, to get all kinds of communications out. Whether or not the terrorists could disable that, I don't know. Maybe not. They might run a line for, 200 or 300 yards and then put an antenna up someplace that doesn't look like it's their antenna, and they could communicate, you know. The terrorists will go up on the roof and start destroying the satellites and the other communication equipment they have up there. They'll have Marines in there with them, and the game plan with this shelter is that they hope they're not going to be in there for more than a half hour, an hour, But if they really seriously get a siege laid on them, they might have to be in there for a half a day or a day. So they probably have it set up for, I'm going to guess, 3 or 4 days of supplies just in case of a real bad emergency. So when they shoot the drones and the missiles in, it's going to drive the people into that shelter, and the Marines that are guarding the place, which are usually more than competent fighters, especially compared to ragtag terrorists, may not have bomb shelter over there. They might. They could build a lookout post, a post like that, and put in, 3 feet of reinforced concrete, and they can go in there and still shoot. I don't know exactly how they did it, but rest assured, if it's in Iraq, that's like the highest risk you're going to find, okay? And that's going to be as fortified can be, okay? And they've had their embassy stormed over the years, and they know the drill, and they know the guys. If they get in, they'll try to start fires, they'll try to gas them, they'll try to flood them, and they've taken precautions to stop all this nonsense, They might have a controlled air system in there where they have a way to suck air in, and they might have large, 6-foot air tanks. They might have 20 or 30 of those that can keep everybody going for a couple of days or whatever. I don't know. If the air gets bad, I don't know all their intricate little details, but rest assured, I've been in houses that American embassy people have lived in not so safe places, okay? And this is their residence, and I see some of the stuff they put in the residence, okay? Safe rooms, special fire exits in case they try to burn them out, where I don't even know how to describe it, You never see this in the media, but it's like a window that's set up as a fire escape, but you can't get into it. It's super secure. But there's releases from the inside, and then a whole big opening opens up the window and a piece of the wall, and you just walk. Basically, you don't have to climb out a window. You just kind of walk out, and they usually set it on ground level near the safe room, which is on the ground level. You don't put a safe level. You don't put a safe room up high. You want the safe room right on the low level. These would be immature safe rooms where the walls are made of concrete block. So, if someone wants to come there, well, no, the safe room actually in the embassy houses would be real concrete. Or they fill the concrete blocks. I think probably real concrete. I don't know, it'd be one or the other. It's probably 4 or 5 inches of concrete. It's gonna stop 50 calibers. It's gonna stop AR-47s and all the, it's RPGs is another story that it probably would sustain an RPG blast. But if they did multiple blasts, I mean, if you really want to stop an RPG from coming in, you have to start getting into, uh, if you had 12-inch hardened concrete, I think they call it 4,000 or something, and you had it full of a lot of rebar, and you had a full 1 foot thickness, I think you would stop RPGs for a while anyway. But so the embassy may get stormed. What America's looking to do is get a declaration of war on Iran. That's what they're looking to do. Okay? They're going into the snare. And the nuclear submarine with them, with the nuclear capable missiles, I can't remember, an Ohio class, I don't know the name of the submarine, but they're all the same, the Ohio class, showed up on the surface around the Eastern Mediterranean as a threat to Iran. And Iran didn't respond to the threat. I mean, they ignored it. So now they can go to the Congress and say, look, we brought aircraft carriers, we brought B-1, B-2 bombers, B-52s, troops. I mean, everything. And now we brought a nuclear-capable submarine, not nuclear-powered, nuclear-capable of launching nuclear weapons. We brought that into the theater, and we demonstrated it on the surface. We didn't just show them. We didn't just say, hey, we got one here. You know, we paraded it openly. The media has pictures of it. And they don't respond. They keep attacking our bases in Iraq and Syria. Now, this is not yet there for America to get a declaration of war. They're waiting for Iraq/Iran/Hezbollah to escalate. Now, Hezbollah escalating against Israel, 50% chance that might push the Congress over. Okay, but America will just attack the Hezbollah and drive them into the ground, you know. So they're looking for something more. And how do they get more if Iran doesn't take this bait? Look, Iran is not the village idiots. They build good weapons. They have a crazy idea of running a government that certainly doesn't suit me, and I don't think any of you. If they can't provoke, so you know, the Iraqi guy that said they were going to escalate against the bases, that was Thursday or Friday last week, and he said next week. Next week to them, they have a Sabbath in their own religion that's from Thursday sundown to Friday sundown. So next week would have started Friday night. What are we on? Tuesday today, right? So basically you got Saturday, Sunday, Monday. You know, he still hasn't done much. So maybe they're getting cold feet. And they don't want to go further at the American bases right now. But that's a kind of junky theory I just threw out at you. Because they're still every day attacking the bases. Every single day, multiple attacks. So it's probably not a political decision. It's probably a tactical, military tactical decision. The bases apparently have anti-missile missiles, you know, Patriots and the other system they have, that can knock their missiles and drones down, and they have been getting knocked down. So they're probably waiting for a different type of missile to get into their hands from Iran and try that. They're not going to just walk up to an American base, which is going to have walls. Maybe it only has a 6-foot wall. Maybe it has a 16-foot wall. There's a big difference. When you got a 16-foot wall, and this is the enemy, and this is you, they don't have weapons that can go up over the wall and come straight down. I mean, a vertical drone could, yes. But a vertical drone doing that, they might even be able to shoot down with their rifles. But they have defenses against the drones. So the artillery, the mortars, and the mortars you can angle it to come in if they're good enough, and their mortars are good enough, which is seriously doubt. But you got a 16-foot wall. The missiles go like this. They don't go up, or, they don't do that. They go like an arc, right? So it's got to clear the 16-foot wall, so it's going to hit further back from the wall, right? A 6-foot wall, you can get closer to the wall. So the guys can go hide in a pinch. When a missile's coming, they could just go hide right up against the wall, and they're not going to probably get hit. They may get tagged with some shrapnel, but probably not a big chance. Some chance, though. If they can't get to an underground shelter. So I think they're not going to just walk up with, 1 or 200 guys or 400 or whatever they're going to assemble and just go over there with grappling hooks and hook onto the wall and start climbing up. Soldiers will slaughter them. They'll have a field day. They'll be talking about it all week. No, they can't do that. They got to bust the place up pretty good and then come in. And I think they're looking for a better tactical missile to do it. If they're thwarted and they don't have such a tactical missile, then they're probably trying to regroup and figure out what they can put together. A big mortar barrage, drone, swarm attack, try to get close to the walls with satchel charges of explosives like, 50, 60 pounds and blow holes in the wall. Don't know what they're up to. I just don't know. They could take a truck and put, 900 pounds of explosives on it, or 1,800 or whatever, and just have a suicide jihadist drive it right up into the wall, if they can get the truck close enough to the wall. These soldiers see a truck coming, they're going to use shoulder-fired projectiles on it, rockets, and they're going to blast it with everybody's rifles. Going to be working that truck. The squad machine guns, the heavy machine guns will be working it. I mean, they're not going to get the truck in. So that's what I think it is. I think they're trying to find a good tactic to be able to do it. And what they're going to try to do predominantly is take American soldiers hostage. Now, I don't know enough about how long it takes for them to get air support and helicopter support and get reinforcements, and I don't know. Is it possible they put 2 or 3 tanks in the embassy? Yeah, and they could open the gates and the tanks could sit outside the gates and give them a bad time. I mean, a real bad time. But the tank is a sitting duck. It's out there in the open, so they'll try to hit it with their anti-tank Cornet missiles. It's complicated. So when that happens, it will give the Biden administration the tools they need to go to Congress and say, look, if we want to keep our bases there, we're going to be under constant attack. Okay? We've got to stop this, and the only way we're going to stop it is to cut the head off the snake, which means Iran has to get attacked. Iran has to see their homeland paying a price for sending these puppet militias out against American forces. Both sides are working the snare. America's trying to get Iran exposed enough to get Congress to give them the majority to declare war on Iran. And then when they declare war on Iran, Biden can do whatever he wants. Now, he ain't picking up a gun and going over there. He's sitting there with the Secret Service in the White House eating filet mignon and drinking fine wines and all of that. So what happens? I mean, how does this progress? Well, if Iran and Iraq militias don't, and the Syria, the militias in Syria, of course, don't escalate what's going to happen is you'll see America start to take action against Hezbollah. They've already warned them. If they open up big attacks, they're going to get it from America. They've been warned multiple times. They don't really need to warn them again. And if they do something that America thinks, okay, this is enough of a provocation for us to go in, it doesn't necessarily have to be hitting Haifa and Tel Aviv. It could be America just says we're sick and tired of this. You have opened another front, and this business of trying to keep it close to the border doesn't work with us, so stop it or we're going to help Israel. Then they go in and they start knocking out Hezbollah, which has to happen to attack Iran. So they start knocking out Hezbollah, bombing, missile attacks and bombing, combined with Israel bombing. So the amount of destruction and everything in the first 3 or 4 hours could be, could take the breath away from Hezbollah. Remember, Hezbollah is sort of sitting on the fence. They say vacillating. He's going this way, that way. You don't know which way he wants to go. If he did, he would take it. What good does it do him if he could turn around and say, we hit Haifa, we hit Tel Aviv, we hit Jerusalem, and Hezbollah is no more? Where does it get him? See, so this is the beef he has with Iran. He wants to be around to play again for another day. Russia knows the snare trap that they're working with China, Russia, and North Korea, and Iran isn't about to let him in. Okay? Hezbollah's not playing ball with Iran, is what I'm saying. Why should they? They're going to be destroyed, and then what? Iran moves on. But he's doing enough now that America has the provocation. So if Iran doesn't, and these militias don't escalate against the American bases, their political advisors probably telling them we don't have enough to pass a bill in the House yet, in the Congress. So then they hit Hezbollah. And they'll hit the Houthis too if they have to until they're... So if Iran sits still and they take out the Houthis, that's good. Now the Houthis are threatening Saudi Arabia because the Saudis knocked out some of their missile launches towards towards a lot, shooting to it. So they're mad at Saudi Arabia, and that sounds exactly like the American trap. They'll start shooting at the Aramco oil facilities or Saudi military bases or whatever, and now America will go to Congress. So if the Houthis do that, that's another avenue America can use to go to Congress. Look, our great friend and ally, Saudi Arabia, is being under attack from the Houthis, which are being manipulated by Iran, and next they'll get the UAE, which is true, and next they'll get Kuwait and this and that, and then we'll have a real oil crisis, blah, 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 blah. And Congress, it's all true, they will, and Congress will probably give them the declaration of war against Iran. That's the American snare. The Americans don't realize that's what Iran wants them to do. What'll happen then is there'll be amazing widespread attacks on the American bases in Iraq and Syria. And the militias that oppose Bashar Assad, they're already fighting against Bashar Assad in Syria. They're going to attack the Hezbollah and the IRGC and Bashar Assad's forces fighting Israel in Syria. And that's going to give a real problem to all the Hezbollah, the IRGC, even the Russians and the Bashar Assad government. They're going to definitely go after the Latakia Navy base and air base in Latakia that Russia has because Iran's using it. They'll definitely try that. Is that going to be grounds for Putin to get into the war? No, that's not the direction it's going. Then no, I don't think so. Putin might try, strafing them or dropping some small bombs or missiles or rockets at them, but it's not going to get engaged. He wants America engaged in the Middle East, so he's free to make his move on Europe. So America's going to dump, if they do start a war with Iran, they're going to dump even more military resources in down here. I don't think they can do a lot to Iran. They can damage Iran severely economically. But I'm of the belief that Iran think Iran has to have way more tunnels than Hamas. So they're going to sustain the bombing and the missile attack from America like Hamas did from Israel. It's 31 days or 32 days now, and they're still holding up. There's a bomb attachment, really, called spice. It has nothing to do with food. And you take a regular normal bomb and you put it on a plane and you drop it. It's going to land maybe, 30 meters here or there. It's not going to, it's not going to land that precisely. It's not a guided bomb. So this spice attachment, which Israel actually invented and American manufactures them, they asked, I think it's something like $320 million worth of these things are coming to Israel. Now, I don't know when they'll be here. They might be here today or tomorrow. And they're, or some of them. You put them on a cheap conventional bomb. You don't need a guided bomb. Israel might not have that many guided bombs. You don't need a guided bomb. It makes this thing a guided bomb with an error of 3 meters, which is roughly 9.5 feet, actually. So if there's a missile launch site near a residential structure, we can hit it without killing the structure, except the shrapnel and the blast, but, so we're going to have a lot of those. Now, those might not be for regular bombs. There's another kind of regular bomb called a bunker buster. And these spice attachments may be to put on the bunker busters so we can get them way more accurate. That way, when we hit the tunnel from above ground, it makes it more severe. Now, there's this hospital, Shifa Hospital. We've surrounded it. We're fighting there. The Hamas headquarters is under there. Guys, in my opinion, having lived here many years, I lived here in the 90s also and been through a lot of this, Hamas will have already moved their headquarters out of that area under the Shifa Hospital to some other point in the tunnel, of which I do not know. Now, what are the implications of this for Hamas? Well, they probably don't have all their gear. They probably don't. It'd be way more convenient and way more productive for them to prosecute the war, to push the war from their original um, setup than to have to go to a satellite room. Um, the satellite room's not going to have the comms. It's going to cripple them somewhat, not devastate them. I imagine they've already moved out. Now, is this a good thing Israel's doing? Oh yeah, no doubt. It's a great tactical move. Don't downplay it. Okay, you got them on the run, and when you got them on the run, you keep them on the run. Netanyahu made a statement. He said the only thing that Hamas understands is military pressure. What he's saying is the iron fist. Okay? Boom, a pounding that they lose. And that's going on now. Unfortunately, it's a slow battle. Now, imagine Iran tunnels. You're going to be able to drive vehicles in those tunnels, although Hamas says they do it with that too. I mean, they probably have electric golf carts and things like that. They drive through their tunnel network. Disney World in Florida, I knew a guy that was in the county sheriff's office there many years ago. He was a good guy. And they don't have uniformed police display themselves in Disney World. They have Disney police, which could be real police working there off duty, but I don't think so. I think they're just security guards, and I don't think they normally would have a gun. They might have pepper spray or something like that. But they have radios, and they have the sheriff in Disney World has a whole network of tunnels. But they don't have little passageways. These tunnels are going to have, 15-foot ceilings so they can bring big stuff through. They got golf electric carts they ride around with them on, and people walk around. I mean, it's a whole network down there. And he used to be down there. They keep him there. So if there's, let's say, drunks starting a fight, the security guards will break it up, and they'll take the people into custody. And now, let's say they can't take them into custody. These people are giving them a really bad fight. Then the sheriffs will come out of the tunnel with their, tasers and their clubs and their guns, and they'll take care of it. Disney is, been a pretty safe place. I used to go there years ago. I would take my gun in. I didn't see the point of leaving the gun in the room or the hotel or the car. I would take it in with me. I used the front pocket holster, and I used normally, if I was mildly concerned, I'd use a 5-shot 357 revolver, which is, you're really cutting it thin. If somebody's going to attack you, they're usually going to bully you. Okay, a guy that's one-on-one going to attack you is not uncommon. Once, many years ago, I came home to my San Francisco apartment late at night. I wasn't a believer then. I was with this girl, and there was another couple, and we walked in. And we went into the lobby, and there was a big guy there with like a hobo's coat on. And he saw us, and he started walking very fast towards us. And I had like a Gore-Tex coat on, which had a pocket here. I kept the 38 in. And I started opening zipper, going for the 38. And he knew exactly he was going to get the 3 H's any minute, which is heaven, hell, the hospital, take your pick. That's old Southern cop talk from the old days, You'd get a guy and you'd say, do you know what the 3 H's are? And the guy go, huh? What? well, it's heaven, hell, or the hospital. Which one do you think you're going to get? That was the scenario. Now, these were good old boys that would chase suspects running away with their cars and smash them into walls. I mean, this was the mentality of this police department. I interned there. And I went out with all the, this is before I graduated from criminology, and I went out with all the different departments. I went undercover with them. I worked for them. I went homicide, auto theft, and forgery, and patrol, and high-risk patrol, I think, all kinds of things, So they give you a flavor. But these guys were a panic. I thought it was the funniest thing in the world, but these guys were out of control. I was a young guy then, very young, and one of the guys kind of liked me. He was a detective. I was working with him. And he was kidding around with me, and one day we were going down the steps, and he was in front of me, and I was behind him. And we were talking about something with some criminals. And then he drew his gun, and he turned around and pointed it in my face and said, "How'd you like an enema?" Illustrating to me what he would tell the perpetrators. And it was a loaded gun on a staircase. That's how wild these guys were. They were wild. Okay, one of the sergeants I worked with, he carried a 44 Magnum, a Smith & Wesson 4-inch barrel 44 Magnum. That is a ridiculous gun for a cop to carry. It's big and it's heavy. If you shoot somebody, there's a very high probability it'll go in and go back out of them. And people use those in Alaska to shoot grizzly bears. The recoil is hard. Now, I've used those in bad places I lived in my life, but the reason I would use the gun is I would use a light bullet, and it would get enough velocity to go through bullet-resistant vests, the minor ones, but more importantly, it would rip through cars. So if someone's coming at you and they're in a car, and you don't hit the window because you're freaking out and they're moving and everything and you're moving and you hit the door, well, it's going to go right through that door and the other door. It's going to go right through the thing. You can disable motors with that. You can shoot the engine and it breaks the engine up, depending where in the engine you hit it, but usually anywhere in the engine it's going to break the engine. So he carried that, And I worked with another guy, and he was a preacher. He was a church preacher. And he was a black guy. I really liked him. We got along really good. He was a funny guy. I was not a believer then. And he knew I was Jewish, and he kind of really liked that, They didn't see many Jews in that area of the South. So, he used to challenge the gangsters, They would tell him, "Oh, you're hiding behind the badge." And he says, "I'll tell you what. I'll meet you. You pick the place, you pick the time, I'll be there, you be there, and we'll square off like in the Old West." The guy knew how to shoot, of course. And he used to show up, and they never did. He said, "I used to go, they never come, I mean, these guys, when me and another guy were interning, and one of the homicide detectives wanted to take us out on the town, right? So he takes us to some strip bar, and we're riding around in a car in a bad neighborhood, and he takes the shotgun out of the trunk and says, "Here, hang on to this," These were wild men. I mean, they were really wild, But that was in the old days, Today the cops are more homicidal than then, Everybody used revolvers back then, and nobody wore a bulletproof vest. Bullet-resistant vests. None of us did that. We didn't do that. So we didn't have pepper spray. We had mace, which is a lot slower. And I played around with mace. One of the guys I worked with used to spray. If a fly got in the car, the patrol car, he'd spray it with mace. It's not that bad. I mean, I took it and I sprayed it on a paper towel and then went like that to breathe it to see what would happen. Not much. What mace was good for was at a demonstration, a protest, they would spray the mace on the guy's clothes, like here, right? Or the face too. But you had it here and it would emanate off. And it would make your eyes tear and your sinuses would feel like somebody threw Tabasco sauce up in there. You know, your throat would get. You wouldn't feel like you want to stay at the demonstration anymore. You'd feel like you'd want to take your top off, but with women it's difficult. Men can just take it off, but it depends on the temperature too. And you just want to get out of there. You want to get in the shower. You want to wash it off. You want to drink cold water, and that was what it was good for. But the pepper spray is pretty decent. What I never hear people say, if it all breaks down and it hits the fan, the eggs are hitting the fan. Pepper spray by itself is not so great. Okay? First of all, the guys know what pepper spray is, and they'll turn their face away and block with their hand. Okay? Now, what if you have pepper spray and a nice 11-inch Bowie knife? I don't care if the guy went to Kung Fu school for 11 years. He went to karate school for 9 years and went to jiu-jitsu school for 4 years. And he's a professional boxer. He was in the ring for money as well. I'm just hypothetically making this up. You got a can of pepper spray and you got a Bowie knife, if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, you just go buy a pepper spray and a knife. No, that may not work, but I would go against any fighter that exists with these two, and I would win. I probably would win at my old age. Okay, because I understand how to use the knife and the blade, and I understand the pepper spray. What is he going to do? He comes within range. I missed. Right? What's he going to do? Rush me? Boom. More like, he can't turn his head away. Then he's wearing the Bowie knife. You understand? They don't teach it. You don't see this in Hollywood. The martial arts school, you don't see it in Hollywood because the martial art teachers don't teach it. They're not straight up people. They suck you into a system, including Krav Maga. They suck you into a system. Okay? That it's never ending. You're always learning. And they don't teach you the full stuff. Okay? They're not going to go have a class and say, look, all you got to do is go like this right in their throat. And if you really hurt the trachea, the guy could die. But if you don't, he's going to have a lot of trouble standing upright and breathing and, all this stuff. That's all you got to do. So what are you going to do? You're going to break the team up, the school. You have 30 kids in your class. You're going to break them up, right? I taught classes in martial arts. I know this. And you say, okay, let's practice this. And somebody's going to make a mistake. And the next thing you know, you got an ambulance there with paramedics trying to resuscitate the guy on the floor of your dojo or your Kung Fu studio. And then what happens? You got a wrongful death suit that's going to probably cripple you. Or you got a suit because the guy got damaged. Oh, well, let's talk about eye gouging. How does that work? Right across the eyes, right? Why am I bringing this up? Because you're going to have a lot of uprisings in Europe and America. And you know that. And society's going to break down. The first thing you want to do is not go anywhere where there's protests. Because if they see you there and you're not chanting their chants and having a Palestinian flag, they may start on you. Okay? It may not be, more than a push or a punch or something. Don't go there. Stay away. This is not your fight. You're in God's army. You don't do this fight. Let them fight each other. They're going to destroy each other. When the smoke clears, Israel's going to be standing, not them. So stay away. Don't go. If you make sure you know where the protests are going to be, or if you hear or see it, boom, get out of there. Once you're 2 blocks away from where the protest is, you can slow down. But I would walk extremely briskly to get at least 2 blocks away. Then I get the heck out of there. Okay, don't be around there. These people can be vicious. All right? The martial arts schools teach all this stuff. Oh, you can't have a knife fight because you're both going to get cut. Nonsense. First of all, no knife fighter that I've met, and I've come across them in my day, okay? And I would say I'm old now, but I know a lot about it. I put the time and the hours and the years in to learn it, and the hours and hours and hours of practice, okay? You don't fight with one knife. If you're going to go knife fighting, you don't do it with one knife. If you're going to go sword fighting, what did the samurai carry? He carried a katana, which usually had a 29-inch blade. That's a sword. And about a 10-inch handle. And he carried a wakizashi, which was a short sword of 14 to 16-inch blade, usually 12 to 16 inches. 16 is pretty good, but it's a little bit less maneuverable if you're indoors. So if he had a fight indoors, he didn't use a 29-inch plus 10-inch handle katana. You can't use those in a tight area. There's furniture, bookcases, ceiling, door, the wakizashi works inside. But outside, they would use bowls. They fought with 2-edged weapons. If you fight with 2 knives, and the Bowie knife is king of knives, you got to know how to use the sucker. And you got to have a Bowie knife with a minimum of 10 inches on the blade. 11 or 12 is better. More than 12 is overkill. And you have 2 of them. Okay? That's knife fighting. You confront these guys that go to the dojos for, many, many years, 10 years and stuff like that, and you're using 2-edged weapons at the same time on this guy. He's out of tricks. Whatever he does, you're going to cut him. And a real knife fighter is, the Marines would teach him, hold a hand out like this, hold your knife here, and use this to block his knife, and then just stab him with your bayonet or your Marine knife and thrust. It was all thrust. It's nonsense. What you do is you defang the snake before you cut his head off, okay? So what you want to do is you want to slash the arm and slash the leg. And then you slash the leg with a nice Bowie knife. The guy's not walking on that leg. Plus there's this red fluid falling all over the place. And after a period of time he's going to pass out. Okay? So you attack the leg, and you got to know what you're doing. And you attack the arm, and that's it. But if you don't know what you're doing and you're worried, you can get yourself a high-powered flashlight. I keep telling you this. Forget candle power. That's nonsense. You want to look at lumen, Lumen, and you want at least 2,000 lumens. You shine that in somebody's eye in the daylight, they can't look at it. 3,000 lumens is better, but don't buy these cheap Chinese pieces of junk. They're not really, they'll tell you it has, 15,000 lumens, and it doesn't. They lie, okay? And you have to get a good name brand from a good seller, okay? And there's several good name brands out there. And you want to make sure, you can call the company and talk to them. You want to make sure that the thing has the ability to, it's not going to light up. Look, if I'm looking for my dog in the yard, I want a flashlight that's going to light up 30, 40 feet in width. Where's Yaffa hiding now, right? But if I'm using it for a self-defense tool, I want a narrow beam. 2,000 lumens, 3,000 is even better. More than that, you probably don't need. Don't look at it yourself, okay? And you shine it in their eyes. They got to turn away, okay? But the flashlight's in this hand. What's in this hand? The Bowie knife? No, you don't know how to use it. Pepper spray. Light pepper spray. They make a pepper spray with foam. It's very hard to get it off your face. It's easy to find. Get a good reputable brand of pepper spray and then go out in the yard or go out in the street someplace and make sure the wind is not blowing at you. Put some kind of sunglasses or glasses on, okay? And test spray it and make sure it works. So, what are the police going to do to you if you have a flashlight and pepper spray? Nothing. Is it effective? It's not going to take the guy out. It's going to get him off you, and you're going to get out of there. What about if it's a group of them in a mob? Well, it's not going to do you much good. You got to not be there. Okay. The only thing that's going to get a group of them off you is to have a 12-gauge semi-automatic shotgun, which most of you, if it comes time to carry those around in the street, you're probably not going to want to go out in the street. So I say this again, if you're worried about getting into a little altercation, the pepper spray by itself is pretty good tool. It gets rid of them. Okay? Even if there's 2 or 3. Now they have a bear spray version of this. That's like a soda can with a squeeze nozzle like for a hose, and that throws like a 10 or 12 foot cloud of pepper spray out at the person. Well, a bear is big. You ever been near a grizzly bear? They're huge, man. They got a head like this. So you want a big cloud of I've been near them in a zoo only, thank God. You want a big cloud of this pepper spray which could envelop 2 or 3 or 4 people. And then you beat feet, you get out of there. Okay, it's not, if you're a knife fighter, yeah, then you could pepper spray them and cut their throat. But, you could also wind up going to jail for the rest of your life. The district attorneys in most jurisdictions, after you pepper sprayed him, he was not a threat to you. Why did you kill him? Well, I thought he was going to recover and then get me. Why didn't you run away? Well, my feet were sore that day, blah, blah, blah. You're going to have a rough time. Can you get out? Yeah, you can get out. With a good lawyer, you'd make a defense. Well, pepper spray doesn't last long. Oh, I might have a delivery, guys. Hold on. Yes? Yes? Okay. I'll be right out there. Don't worry. I'll be right there. Thank you. Okay. Sorry, guys. I got something coming. My chair that I sit on outside rotted away. I ordered a new one. I'll be right back. So the reason I'm telling you this is I'm not trying to play martial arts hour. Things are getting bad. So I'm trying to give you some tips. let's say you're walking down the street and you have your flashlight and you have your pepper spray and you see some crazy guy. He's got a woman and he's punching her in the face and telling her to lay down and rip her clothes off and stuff like that, right? And you walk over there, you spray the guy in his face, you shine the flashlight in his face. Some people will say, well, you're not a Christian, you know. But the woman you saved is going to think you're a Christian. And, you know, it's all different. You know, it's a complicated thing, but the best thing is just not to be around these people when they're protesting violently. Don't go there. Avoid them. So, will America fall into the snare? Yep. They've used Hamas and Hezbollah to provoke Iran by supporting Israel. And now they're going deeper by trying to declare war on Iran and attack Iran. Are they crazy enough to actually invade Iran on the ground? In other words, an actual invasion like Iraq? They're not going to get anywhere if they don't. They're going to hurt Iran. They're going to bomb all sorts of stuff. Russia's going to scream bloody murder. China will scream bloody murder. They're all going to scream crazy, you know. A war on Islam. They'll unleash the sleeper agents in Europe and America. And if America just decides to bear down hard, they'll have to do an invasion, and that will be their end. That'll be the end of them. Because they're going to need they're going to have to go to NATO, and they're going to have to raise hundreds of thousands of troops. 100,000 troops is not going to work too good. Maybe, you know, with all the high tech, maybe. But 250,000, yeah, it's even weak. 1 million, yeah. 1 million would be good. But what they're going to do, they'll have immediate air superiority and sea superiority. They'll blow their boats out of the water. The boats will be a child's play for America to get rid of the boats. Now, there's a wild card working here. The wild card is, do the anti-ship missiles work effectively against well-defended American warships? The latest generation of these anti-ship missiles, I would say emphatically nobody knows. Nobody knows if they'll work. But they wouldn't just do that. They would combine it with drone attacks, conventional missile attacks, swarm attacks, and try to overwhelm the defense mechanisms of the American warship, and then get in with that anti-ship missile. If anybody takes out an American ship now in the Mediterranean, the Red Sea, Sea of Oman, Arabian Sea, Persian Gulf, America will go to war. In a matter of hours, they'll figure out where the missile came from, and they'll know it's going to be Iran. And they'll go to war right then and there, I think. They'll have an emergency session of Congress, and that's it. Hezbollah says he has weapons that could take out a ship. First of all, the American warships are staying so far away from land. They're probably at least 200 miles. They don't have a missile that's going to travel that far and accurately hit a moving target. American warships are not going to normally just drop anchor and sit there, you know. When there's combat or they're in the threat, they're going to keep moving. And they'll pick up the path of the missile, and they have electronic countermeasures, and they have anti-missile missiles, and they even have the phalanx gun, if that fails, which sprays, it's a Gatling gun, machine gun, and it sprays over 3,000 rounds a minute of 20 millimeter shells, and it makes a wall of bullets in front of the missile, and the missile disintegrates. And aircraft carriers have those on 3 sides, you know, front and left and right, and sometimes on the back too. That's their okay, stop. That's their last ditch effort. Okay. So it's doubtful to me that they're going to bring down an American warship 200 miles off the shore. They don't have an air force to attack with. Iran doesn't have an air force to attack with. So I don't think that's going to be now in the Persian Gulf or the Red Sea. Yeah, they can do it. The ones that are sick enough to try this are the Houthis. If Iran gives them a weapon that's effective enough, but they can try 6 or 8 anti-ship missiles simultaneously. And for good measure, send 5 or 10 drones and make the American warship nuts. You know, may not. All they got to do is get 1 anti-ship missile in, and then the war starts. Can they do it? I don't think America or us know. I don't think they know either. I don't think anybody knows. You got to wait and see what happens. If it works, it works. I don't know. My guess is if they do a big enough swarm attack, it'll work. And that would give America all the ammunition that they need to get Congress to declare war. But I don't think America's out there, you know, holding a sacrificial warship out there to get Congress's permission. I don't think they're that desperate or anything like that. How did they kidnap all the people? They walked. They were very close to the Gaza border. They walked. There was some hostages that they took. A woman and a child. They couldn't walk too good for some reason. He was injured. And they force walked them to the Gaza fence. They were going to use them in case they got attacked by Israeli police or soldiers. And then they just let them go. So they gave us the testimony. They saw a lot of what happened. Do the Jews follow Torah or Talmud? Well, that's a funny question. I'll explain it to you. The Talmud is an extra biblical set of books. There's about 10 or 15 of them. They big books. It comes out like this. I've read a lot of it. It makes no sense. It's ridiculous. And I don't know why people follow it. But they predominantly follow the Talmud, and I'll explain. They're taught by the Talmudic rabbis that the written law, the first 5 books of Moses, let's say, the Torah, was not the real law. That was written for the goyim, for the heathen. The real law was given to Moses orally, and he passed it on. They call it the oral law. No such thing exists. They made this up. And the oral law is written down by them. So they're saying the written law is no good, but the oral law is good. That's for the Jews, and we wrote it down. So it's sort of stupid. The written law is no good, but we have another written law. It's pretty dumb, you know. And according to them, the Talmud overrides the Moses law because they think the Talmud is really Moses' law. The other stuff is. So the Talmud contradicts the true law, Moses' law, tremendously. And it says specifically in there, Yeshua is not the Messiah, not the Son of God, never rose from the dead, wasn't a prophet, and they go as far as calling him a bastard. Okay? Now, that being said, I want you to know there's a lot of false teachers and false prophets and false pastors out there that use the Talmud in their sermons and in their teachings. How would you feel if I was doing a teaching and I was going to tell you something about what happens to Iran, and I said, look, Iran being destroyed is written in the Tibetan Book of the Dead? You'd look at me like I was a screwball, right? Well, the Talmud, I'd look at you like you're a screwball too. They feed the people from a book that says Yeshua is not a prophet, not the Son of God, didn't rise from the dead, and is a bastard. Yet people keep listening to them. It's amazing. It's amazing. So how's Israel doing in the war? Well, Israel's doing okay. The progress is slight every day. It's a little here, a little there. Layat, we call it little by little. We're very, very concerned about keeping our troops alive and uninjured. And that's why it's going slow. Like I said, there's a lot of things we could do that would be brutal that might end it quicker, but world opinion would go nuts. Blinken tried to calm Iraq down and actually visited him a day or two ago. I think 2 days ago. It didn't do much good. As soon as he left, the Iraq foreign minister went to visit Iran. So, didn't do any good. The attacks are continuing. They're going to war against Iran. That's what this was about from its onset. Provocations and then going to war with Iran. Helping Israel is a provocation, of course, and when Israel finishes this, okay, this is what we found yesterday. There was a mosque. Now, the way you can build a mosque is, like a rich person's house. You have the house in the center and you put a big wall around the house. And then you have, courtyards. You might have 2 or 3 acres of courtyards with fountains and gardens, and it looks good, and you could, maybe people want to sit outside there. They put a gazebo, or you might have it in the back of a rich person's house. You put a fence around it. No, you put the wall around it, and maybe even a 12 or 16-foot wall. It's not going to keep dedicated military or terrorists or ace burglars out, but it's going to keep most people out. And climbing the wall means you're making a commitment to break the law, breaking and entering, your trespass, whatever. You're making a commitment. And a lot of people don't like to do that because if they get seen in court going over the wall, they're guilty already, especially if they got weapons and burglar tools. Okay, so there's a mosque that we found that was a historic monument of some sort, I think. And it had a courtyard. And what they did is they dug a pit in the courtyard. It was a rectangular hole. I looked at the videos and the pictures. They were on my Telegram if you want to see it. To get to my Telegram, you got to download the app, which is called Telegram Messenger. You install it. Then you send me an email asking me, just put in the subject header Telegram. My email address is in the chat, and it's in the description box under the video on the lowest line down. I'll read it to you. It's israelgiving7@gmail.com. israelgiving7@gmail.com. Okay? And it, you just say Telegram in the subject header, and I'll send you the invite link. You click on the invite link, and 2-3 seconds you're in, and that's it. It's free. The app's free. Everything's free. Okay? I update it 100 or 200 times a day with all kinds of stuff. I translate from Hebrew social media, Arab social media. I once in a blue moon use Iranian Farsi foreign media, but they control their internet so closely. There's rarely anything up there worth looking at. And a lot of it's all in English what I put up. If I put it up in a foreign language because I want you to see the picture, then I put the English underneath it. Okay, so uh, the pit looked like it was 6 to 8 feet deep. It could have been a little more. It looked like a deep grave, shaped like a grave. And it was maybe 4 or 5 feet wide or something like that. And probably 9 or 10 feet long, maybe 12 at the most. Something. It wasn't very big. And it didn't have concrete or anything, it was just raw dirt. And it had missile launches in there and missiles. So they had, I don't know, they had some way to jump down there. They had steps or something. I don't know. And they ran down in there and they ran electric lines from the mosque to the missile launcher because I imagine the missile launcher was running with, they needed electricity to get it to do something, I guess. Hang on, let me see what's going on. I may be getting another delivery. I don't think so. Oh, no, that's my healthcare plan, and they'll probably tell me, why don't you come in and we got at least 18 vaccinations we can give you, and let's test you. Let's give you X-rays, sonograms. We'll take a pint of your blood and test everything. We'll take this and crazy. I haven't stepped foot in the place in many years. Got to pay though; it's the law. Doesn't cost us much because I'm retired. So for me and my wife both, it's about $300 a year. And but I'd rather not pay the $300. All right. Um, so that's how they're doing the missile launches. That's why we're not stopping the missiles. We didn't know about this. We just found out a day or so ago. So they have multi-tube launches that have 8 or 10 or even 12 tubes, and they put these Katyushas in and they go that's the barrage attacks. Okay? So what they would do, in my opinion, is why we didn't know this is we're flying reconnaissance planes. Americans flying reconnaissance planes. We're flying drones. We got our own planes flying. And we're probably taking movies and pictures of everything while we're flying. And then they magnify them and they sit there and they try to figure out what they could see, right? That's standard war tactics. So what these characters probably do is when they're not using the rocket launcher, right? They cover it with a tarp that probably looks like dirt, or they just kick dirt on the tarp so an airplane would not pick it up. Or they might take, if they can do it, drive a truck over the pit, or just have an old dilapidated truck or bus and push it over the pit when you're not using it to cover it up. And all of these tricks would work. They could put park benches over the bus when they're not using over the pit. Anything, you know that. It's not hard. So the one we found was in a mosque in the courtyard, and then they did another one, I believe, in some sort of a school or place for children. So we get the GPS coordinates, right? When the missile launches, we know where it came from. But we're not going to go bomb the mosque and the school because it's going to create an international incident. That's how they're doing it. Now we're learning because we're on the ground. So we're going to find these missile launches finally. Okay? And they're going to be gone. And the missiles are going to stop. It's just a handful of days away, probably. Okay? Now, what happens then? Well, that's when the eggs are going to hit the fan with the Muslim fanatic jihadist terrorists, because they know the end is coming. They know now the end is coming for Hamas. As long as they keep seeing Hamas slinging rockets at Israel, they're happy. Okay? But we're getting them. We're blowing up tunnel entrances and exits. These new spice bomb things, whatever, I don't know what you heard. It takes a regular bomb and makes it into a precision bomb, are going to be used on the bunker buses. I'm quite confident. So they could get it right on the tunnel. And they're going to die like rats in the tunnel. And what's Iran going to do? What's Hezbollah going to do? What's the Houthis going to do? And what are the Iraqi militias going to do? And the Syria militias? And what's Turkey going to do? And what's Jordan and Egypt going to do? You're talking about tens of thousands of dead Hamas if they don't surrender. If they surrender, it's an absolute failure for Hezbollah, for Hamas, for the Houthis, for Iran, for the Iraq militias, for the Syrian militias. It's just a sheer failure for them. Their recruitments are going to drop. They're probably going to have people drop out. Their pride is going to be damaged, and, so are they going to just sit still and let this happen? That's a good question, isn't it? If they try to mobilize and march on Hamas or something like that, American Navy isn't going to be happy. They want to provoke Iran. If they just sit there and let them come in and kill the Israelis, it doesn't provoke Iran. They need a declaration of war to hit Iran. So they defend Israel. How else do you provoke Iran? Well, you attack Hezbollah. We're getting into critical mass where Hezbollah is going to be under incredible pressure from the Houthis, Iraq militias, Syrian militias, and Iran and Hamas to attack Israel. And Nasrallah isn't into a bonsai suicide attack, which is what they want him to do. Sit there and say, "Bonsai!" and charge with a samurai sword and get mowed down by machine gun bullets. That's the equivalent of what will happen to them. Instead of machine gun bullets, it's going to be death from above in the form of missiles and bombs. Loads of them. There'll be at least 100 planes combined from America and Israel bombing Hezbollah positions all day and all night. They'll have to head to the hills. Then Israel will invade. Now Israel is saying that it's pretty much determined that they're going to have to administer Gaza for an undetermined amount of time after the war. That's another provocation to these Muslim states. Israel's going to occupy. Is Israel going to build houses there? Not at this time, no. After redemption, yeah. Great place to live, by the way. Beautiful beaches. It's nice. Warm. Sea breezes. Good place to live. Israel's fighting deep in Gaza City now. They're getting that Shifra hospital what are we going to do? We'll invade the hospital. We'll go through the hospital. We probably won't find any Hamas there. If they are there, there'll be shootings till we get in the hospital. They'll use the patients as human shields. All the garbage. It's a war crime to use human shields. It's a war crime to put missile launches in the courtyard of a mosque or a school. They do it. We document it. The UN is not going to do anything to Hamas or Hezbollah, period. Forget about it. It's not going to happen. Zero chance. Okay? It ain't going to happen. And that's why they do it. They know nothing's going to happen to them. So now we got boots in the ground. We really got to the bottom of how the missiles were working. Okay? And now it's just a matter of time. We go to the various places where you could find an area adjacent to a big building that would be a high stress civilian target to hit. You'd be in a lot of trouble if you hit it. And look around for pits where they put them underground. Then they launch them from underground in the pit. The pit has no cover. The missile systems will be disabled in a matter of days. They'll be getting less missiles, less. We're getting ammo depots, missile depots, equipment depots. We're destroying that stuff. Hamas is saving the hostages to make a last move, I think. But to be fair, we have to look at it this way. Netanyahu demanded the Red Cross go in and physically inspect these hostages to see if they're wounded and getting treatment, if they're being fed and all that. Well, they never did it. Why? The Red Cross is not there to help Jews. They don't care about Jews. They're here to help the Muslims. And they don't care. They never checked. Now that Netanyahu drug them out on the carpet, I think they're going to check. But they may not be able to check. Hamas may not let them check. And Hamas may not want to reveal the locations of the hostages to them to check. And it may come out that there are no 241 hostages. There may not even be half of that because they're not alive anymore. So we don't know. Netanyahu's not going to trade 5,000 to 6,000 terrorist prisoners for the hostages. It's not going to happen. Biden's not going to insist. Not on those numbers. It's too stupid. They'll just go back and fight. So Hamas's ranks will grow larger as a result of that. Once America and Iran get into it, Israel is going to be, the importance level of Israel is pretty much finished. In terms of the Muslim terrorist organizations, they got bigger problem with America than Israel. And Hamas is a dead terrorist organization walking. Like a dead man walking, on death row. They don't have much more time. Once they can't shoot any more missiles, they're probably going to try to negotiate something with the hostages. And the something is going to involve a ceasefire, a withdrawal of the American troops and letting them live, which is going to mean that they get safe passage to Europe, to Egypt. And then from Egypt, they'll go to probably Iran. That's the safest place for them. Hezbollah would not be a safe place. Lebanon's very unstable, as is Iran. And America might like that idea, but Israel certainly isn't going to give in. There's 50,000 of these guys using the tunnels, or maybe there's 48,000 now, or something like that, right? You start killing 20, 30,000 of these people, you imagine what the world's going to be like? Well, it's coming. And America wants to provoke Iran, and that'll do it. At some point, Iran's going to pop their cork and act emotionally and charged in a stupid way, and you go after America. Then I don't think America really needs to declare war anymore. Yeah, they do. They do. They could react immediately to defend themselves, but they got to declare war. They got to do that. So nobody's going to worry very much about Israel at that point. Israel's going to be able to regroup, I think. They'll come back for Israel. America may be dumb enough to invade. That way they get control of the oil, which is substantial. They wouldn't just confiscate the oil. That doesn't look good. They'd put a company like Sunoco or I don't know, the gas companies, and Shell or one of their buddies would be over there working it. You know. That's what's going on now. So every day we're pushing closer and closer into Gaza. We got the north separated from the south of Gaza. And we're closing in. Every day there's slight progress, but the injuries are minimal. If you read the Muslim social media, those fighters, their reports, Israel wouldn't have any more tanks left or soldiers or jeeps. They're always publishing, we destroyed this, we destroyed that, and they're not. They're putting fake news out there. And a lot of people, well-meaning, well-intended people on social media or, the Facebook, Instagrams, Twitters, all this stuff, are falling for this fake news. And they're repeating it. I see it. Somebody sent me an Amazon gift card the other day, which I thank them for, and I put it to good use. Chief and Yaffa needed some winter sleeping mats to keep them off the cold floor. In the summer, they have a little towel they sleep on, but they usually don't bother with it because they want to sleep on the cold floor. But in the winter, they don't want to sleep on a cold floor because what they got to do is lay down on it. It's tile. They got to lay down on it and then wait and heat the tile up. It's not a pleasant thing. And then they don't want to move because then they got to redo it again. So it's uncomfortable. So they got these mats. I had one last year for Chief. And Yaffa didn't want it. I don't know. She had another bed or something. She had something else for her. Chief liked it because he didn't have to climb up on it. It was about a quarter of an inch or so thick. And it was basically rubber, and it had some, I don't know how to describe it, some kind of polyester hairs on there. So it was soft enough for him, and you didn't have to navigate climbing up anything, and he'd sleep on it, and it worked pretty good. Oh, I know what we had. Then we bought some beds at the beginning of the summer that was supposed to cool them off. And they did, but just a little. It wasn't too effective. And they got so filthy, and then we had to throw them away. It was just junk. I hope the ones that I got now hold up. So that's what I used the Amazon gift card for, and I thank you, and Chief and Yaffa, thank you. And they just sent me a notice that they shipped them, so they should be here pretty quick. And I hope they like them. What I found the dogs don't like, the little dogs, is you get them these dog beds with a wall around it. They hate that. They don't like that. They like just a mat. That's what they like more than anything. Uh, Something that they know is theirs, you know. Cats are different. I love cats. I've had a lot of cats. You build them a little house, like a little tiny dog house on top of a pole with carpeting and landings. And they just love climbing up and sleeping in that little house at night. They like that better than anything else, you know. Um, Dogs don't. We have a huge dog house on the side for the big dogs. They don't go in it at all. I don't know why. They won't go in. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't know why they're that way, but they are. Years ago, I had big dogs and I built them a wood dog house, and it had a floor made out of wood, and I put carpet in there and tacked the carpet down so it'd stay warmer in the winter. So he'd rip the carpet out. And then I did it again, he ripped it out again. So I said, forget it, he wants to sleep on the wood. This guy was so big and strong, he'd sleep outside in a light snow, and the snow would be on him, and he didn't even wake up. His metabolism was running so fast. Yeah. The big guys, the big girls, they usually sleep somewhere where, well, I don't know. We got kennels. Sometimes we'll put them in a kennel and they got a sleeping pad that's about an inch thick, at least, in the kennel, and they sleep there. Or I don't know. Mommy likes to sleep in the room with me. She watches over me. You know, if she's not in the room, she's right outside my door, facing my doorway. She wants to make sure that these Tyrannosaurus rexes and, you know, hippopotamus and all that don't get me at night or something. I don't know. She's a good girl. So this thing is only going to get worse with the regional war. It's not going away. The only, you know something, there is nothing America can do at this point to stop what's coming. Nothing. Nothing. Well, maybe they could. What they'd have to do is immediately close all their bases in the Middle East and withdraw completely. Stop supporting Israel. Remove all sanctions from these nations they put them on, Muslim nations. And then sit down and talk with the countries of the world, and they may decide to work something out with you to avoid their own war. But you know something? That's just never going to happen. Okay? America is not going to close bases in the Middle East. That's what Iraq wants, that's what Syria wants, that's what Iran wants, that's what they all want, and they're not going to do it. So you're going to have this war. Biden would prefer to do it with a declaration of war from Congress, so that way Congress doesn't come after him. And Trump can't do much about it. Trump will badmouth him. Anything Biden does, you know, Trump will throw mud on him. There's a high probability that America will not invade Iran. You know, troops on the ground. They might. The two witnesses may be the ones that shut Hamas down. Okay? They may start working openly before and shut Hezbollah down too. I don't think Iran. how could they shut them down? Oh, there's a million ways. They've got control of all the plagues, right? They could turn all the water in the tunnels to blood, right? That gives them 72 hours to die of dehydration. Probably 48 hours in that heat. Could they send, if Moses and Aaron, who are not as high up as the two witnesses, could send the frogs, well, God really does it, of course, but into Egypt, well, they could send frogs into the tunnel, but why just use frogs? There's more creative things than frogs. You know, pigs. Uh, Bats. Wolves. Leopards. I mean, you know, if God could send millions of frogs, he could send, you know, a small amount of leopards into the tunnel. Let's say only 5,000. That's enough. When they start smelling food, also known as Hamas military soldiers, they're going to partake. Or you could use lions. There's all kinds of stuff they can do. Make it snow in the tunnel. You don't think God could bring snow into the tunnel? What if you gave them 6 feet of snow in the tunnel? They could shut their air conditioners off and save power. You know, you got to understand that they could also put fire in the tunnels and barbecue them. And it might be how it gets shut down. Because this thing is dragging on and on and on, and Israel keeps taking more and more rockets every day. I agree, though, they will have those rockets shut off pretty soon. And maybe God's not going to do the two witnesses. He's just going to let Israel destroy them and get their recompense, and let the world know that we're in the year of recompenses and the 2,000 years of punishment is over. He might just let Israel do it. Do you think those that got killed by this invasion, the 1,400 or so, might actually come back from the dry bones? I don't know. It's a thought, though, isn't it? I don't know. There's no scripture for that. I don't know. What's Turkey going to do? Turkey, Jordan, Egypt, they'll all turn on Israel. Just give it a little time. Let's look at the chat, see if anything's going on. I think it's refreshing, but it doesn't seem to be. Let me redo this. Maybe I gotta turn it on to get it to refresh. While people are still coming in, jump into the live stream. Well, I'm Israeli. I grew up in America, if that helps you. You ask me where I'm from. I grew up in America. Lived here a lot. What else can I tell you? It's going to go. This regional war is going to go. America is dead bent on this, you know, and that's going to happen. And soon, it's just going to be a matter of days, I think. That's it. And you're going to see more and more flare-ups. The way the drum roll, is going with the protests in America is they're getting more and more outspoken, more and more violent, and that will keep increasing. And they will draw more into their ranks that way. And that's not the sleepers. The sleepers are not going out and protesting and having their pictures taken for facial recognition. They're not stupid. They're staying away from those protests. But there'll be a time they emerge and start working openly, and it's going to probably be fires. I've told you that. Don't expect them to go door to door like they did when they broke into Israel. The people in Israel don't have guns. People in America have guns. They're not going to do that. Some people in Israel have guns, but not that many. There's going to be people uprising against Biden shortly. When the sleepers break out, they'll start uprising against Biden. That's your ruler fighting ruler. Ruler against ruler. They'll try to succeed from this federal government, all kinds of things. They won't be able to. They'll try it. There'll be fighting between them and the federal government. The gun people, the survivalist people, the militia people will go to war against the Muslims in general, and they'll attack mosques in general. I know they will. I've spoken to them years ago. That's their intent. They'll go after the mosques. They'll shoot them up. They'll do drive-by shootings. They'll burn them, Molotov, everything. They're going to try to destroy the mosques, and they'll go after the Muslims, even though the ones that are nice, peaceful Muslims, they'll go after them. They'll go after them all. And Biden, that's a big nightmare for Biden. Because it's civil disobedience, a breakdown. Biden's going to say, let the FBI take care of it. Let the police take care of it. Stay home. And they're not going to listen. They're going to say, yeah, someone breaks into your house with a gun and you call 911. And then the cops get there 15 minutes later and they call the morgue to come take your body away. You know, they're not going to do that. And they'll threaten the police. They'll say, if you start interfering with us, you know, we're going to shoot you. And a lot of the police will interfere with them, and a lot of the police will just be joining them. Some police departments will try to help the Muslims, like New York police, and a few places. Most of them will just sit on the sidelines. That's about it, I guess. So be prepared in Europe and America for these uprisings. They're coming. They're not going to not come. They're going to come. And they're going to come in days. They're already here, and they're going to elevate. And they're going to get worse and worse and worse as Israel's victory gets more secure. Once the rocket shot stop shooting with it, they're going to probably start going nuts. Once America starts fighting against Hezbollah or Israel by itself, it doesn't matter, we're both together, it's going to heat up. And when Israel declares war on Iran, it's going to heat up. It's got no escape at this point, okay? It's got no escape. It's the snare. I've been talking about it for a long time. It's the snare. That's what's happening for America, and it leads to the destruction of the daughter of Babylon. Let me read you Isaiah 47. And you can see with current events the way they are today that you'll understand this is exactly what it's talking about. I'll just illustrate with it as we go. It's not a great big chapter, 15 verses. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. So this is America, the daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground, there is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans. The Chaldeans are like astrologers and fortune tellers, witches. For thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. Take the millstone and grind meal, so that means their economy is like finished. Uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover the thigh, pass over the rivers. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered. All the things that she's done are going to be exposed. Well, a lot of them. Yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. So God's going to go after her not as a man, but as a God. As for our Redeemer, hint, year of redemption. The Lord of hosts, his name is Holy One of Israel, Chadosh Yisrael. Sit thou silent and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans. For thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. So that could be, the darkness could be they attack the electrical supply around the United States and infrastructure and stuff like that. Could be something else. It could be God puts a darkness over them. Don't know. The word for darkness, I think, is kosek, which is a thick dark. Let me check it. It is this kosek. It's a O daughter of the Chaldeans, that's America, or for thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. I was wroth with thee, my people, I have polluted my inheritance and given them into thy hand. Thou didst show them no mercy. Polluted mine inheritance is probably Israel, because the land is the inheritance. And America's been controlling Israel for a long time. That's could be what this is. Or he could be referring to the inheritance as the Jewish people in America, of which there's almost the same amount of known Jews there as there are in Israel. And then we got to deal with the lost tribes too. And thou said, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart. It doesn't pay attention to what's happening. I'm the great America. Neither didst remember the latter end of it. Therefore, hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures, that dwellest carelessly, that saith in thy heart, I am, and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. But the loss of children is those that are following these unclean spirits. And a widow is married to the land, but she loses the land goes desolate. But these two things shall come to thee in a moment. You see how it's going to come fast? That's what you got to understand. Guys, it's going to be super sudden, unexpected. In one day, In a moment. The word for moment is 7281. Rega. Okay, let me explain this now. Someone goes, who is it? Oh, it's FedEx. I say Rega, which means wait a minute. It's pretty quick. In a moment, in one day. The word for day is yom, the correct word for day. The loss of children and widow, they shall come upon thee in their perfection. Perfection. What is that word? Tome in Hebrew. Completeness. Fullness. There's going to be a perfect storm on America. Okay? But it's a war. For the multitude of thy sorceries and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, thou hast said, none seeth me. Oh, are they wrong? Thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it hath perverted thee. In other words, they know the ways of evil only. And thou hast said in thy heart, I am, and none else beside me. They think they're the greatest in the world. Therefore shall evil come upon thee, thou shalt not know from whence it riseth. They're not going to see any of this coming. And again it says, thou shalt not be able to put it off, the evil, and desolation shall come upon thee suddenly. Suddenly, the word for suddenly is 6597 in Strong's, piton, and it's probably best translated instantly. Which thou shalt not know. In other words, it's coming at them in a way they don't know. Fires, I'm telling you, it's the fires, Stand now with thine entrenchments and enchantments, with thine enchantments, that's witchcraft. With the multitudes of thy sorceries, that's witchcraft, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so be thou shalt be able to profit, if so be thou mayest prevail. He's making fun of them because he knows that's not going to happen. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Those are the people that are advising them. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly procrastinators stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. Behold, they shall be as stubble. The fire shall burn them. Fires are coming, I'm telling you. They shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. There shall not be a coal to warm at, nor fire to sit before it. So the fires are going to get them, but they're not going to be able to sit in front of a coal. That's Chief snoring. In Israel, they lived in Goshen, the Israelites, and they had light in their house, and the Egyptians, there was no light in the street, but they had it in their house. But the Egyptians couldn't get anything going in their house. They couldn't light a coal, a torch, anything. And there was no light outside. They couldn't see. And we're talking thick darkness. You can't see your hand in front of your face. They couldn't go out and walk around. They'd bang into things and fall down. Give me a second. It could be important. It's probably not. But my wife's still out of the country, so... I'll deal with that later. I don't think it's important. Okay. Thus shall they be unto thee with whom thou hast labored, even thy merchants from thy youth. They shall wander every one to his quarter, none shall save thee. That's it. That's America. They're gonna go. They're gonna be leaving. You'll be seeing, for fear of the sword, the foreigners, agriculture workers and stuff leave. Okay, please. I'm Moshe. Please pray for me and my wife Rivka. Pray for me that I get my sleeping better. I wind up going to bed very early, and then I wake up too early, like 4 in the morning or something like that, and I don't need any more sleep. So pray I get my sleep regulated and sleep more, if you would. And pray for Rivka and Moshe, our peace, safety, protection, and joy, and pray for our finances and our animals and pets, that they be happy, healthy, and whole. They're all rescues. Pray we don't have to go in bomb shelters here. And pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and pray for better videos. And make sure you subscribe, so when stuff starts happening suddenly, I'll just pop up. When stuff happens suddenly, I'll just pop up and do live streams. So make sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out. Thank you.